a very important guest. Well, first us as a very important guest on our own show, but we have another guest, Robert Johnson, who's coming to share with us tonight. Would you like to introduce our guest?
Robert Johnson is a child advocate. He is the team lead at Beech Acres Parenting Center, and he has been there for a short period of time, but he's been a child advocate for about 18 years, working at the Children's Home in Cincinnati, working in a child psych units. So he has a great deal of information and a great deal of personal experience dealing with parents and dealing with children, specifically children in foster care. He was emancipated through the foster care Cincinnati system after 11 years in foster care. So he works with Beech Acres Parenting Center as a team lead for the Mountain Washington School. And he has a plethora of experiences to bring to this situation. And the best part is he is also our son. So welcome, Robert.
Thanks for having me.
So can you explain for us your role as team lead, where you're working now at Beech Acres Parenting Center?
So I am serving as the leader of a group of staff members who help to facilitate a program called Beyond the Classroom. And Beyond the Classroom is a program that is designed to address issues with students and families as a whole to prevent certain obstacles and certain family issues, a variety of family issues, from hindering that child's learning experience. And so we have a team lead who oversees that and basically serves as a liaison between Beech Acres, the staff, and the school, and collaborates with the school on ways to improve family engagement in the school, because that's one of the biggest issues, is getting parents in your public school system to engage with their child's learning experience, and also getting students and families connected to services like behavioral health services, mental health services, whether it's things that they need or that are basic, like basic needs. The team lead person is responsible for overseeing that and making sure that school gets the support they need. And we're in several schools in the Cincinnati Public School District and other private schools in the city of Cincinnati and beyond.
Okay. Our tech person is saying that your mic is coming through a little choppy. I'm not sure what exactly you need to do to change that, but I just want to alert you to that. Can you tell us the kinds of behaviors, the kinds of situations that you are dealing with at Beech Acres Parenting Center? What kind of child situations are you having to handle?
So basically, how's my audio now?
David will tell us. Keep going.
Okay. So basically, your question was the type of behaviors and the children that we see, right?
Yes.
So basically, these are kids who are at risk, who have experienced trauma at some point in their lives, and also those who are experiencing some form of poverty or lack of resources. So these kids usually have an emotional or behavioral disturbance that that inhibits their ability to learn, that hinders their ability to function in a normal general ed classroom. And families, there's a focus also on the family as well. So we understand that the manifestation that is seen in the classroom of behavioral outbursts or whatever it is that is happening in the school, within the school structure that's hindering them, can also stem from family issues. So we also put an emphasis on working with parents and caregivers on ways that they can improve their parenting skills, and also supporting them with some of the things that they might not know that they can do to better support their children.
So when we had our pre-meeting, the kinds of behaviors you were talking about were depression and suicide, ideation, oppositional, defiant demeanor, explosive behaviors in the classroom, fighting with peers, refusal to allow follow classroom instructions, anxiety, and autism. And one of the things that I was wondering, now that we've moved into this virtual learning situation and we've had this pandemic, what kinds of things might be struggles for the parents that you're dealing with and the children that you're dealing with that are specific to the situation that we're currently in?
I would say for the students, and for just students in general, the biggest issue is they're losing out on that face-to-face contact, that face-to-face connection. Also, socialization with peers and other classmates. And then I would say what I would call caregiver child relationship fatigue. So basically, you're in the home all day with your caregiver, and both sides, they're not getting to leave the home like they normally do to interact with other adults. Because a parent and a child, the relationship is much more different than a teacher and a child, I get to see my art teacher once a week, or I get to go to music once a week, or I get to feel that energetic feeling of it's gym day today, and I get to interact with my gym teacher. And these are experiences that I think we may take for granted, as far as like variety of adult personalities that we get to experience. And as kids, that's part of our learning, is that different adults have different expectations and different personalities, and kids are having to, unbeknownst to us, they're having to navigate those relationships, as well as the academics that they're getting. The social part is crucial, because they have that exposure to all those relationships and all those different types of structure. Like, this teacher might allow this in the classroom, but in this classroom I can't do A or B. And so I think that something that we don't talk about, we talk about social, that they're losing out on the social part, but we don't dig deeper into what that looks like as far as a day-to-day inside the school. And so now that's just the general education. When you talk about kids who are autistic, when you talk about kids with disabilities who have IEPs, you talk about kids who have behavioral and emotional and concerns and trauma history. Now they're at home all day, and we don't know, like, some of these kids, their physical environment may remind them of the trauma that they experienced. And so they're more susceptible to those emotional outbursts, or feelings of depression might be intensified because there's more isolation. Yes, the teacher is online. Yes, they can still, Beech Acres is still offering services virtually, but it's just not the same, because there's something to be said for the physical, for that. It's like, it's intangible. Someone is in front of me talking to me, and I can feel and see and hear the empathy, and I can feel it because it's present, as opposed to it being on a screen.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially since they're still developing how to understand nonverbal communication. Directly there in front is Oof, it's got to be a tremendous loss for them in this time frame. For those of you that are just joining us, this is Tuesday Table Talks. We have Robert Johnson, child advocate, and our topic today is parents and the pandemic and some of the challenges that they're facing. He is an employee of Beech Acres Parenting Center, and we're delving into some of the challenges that children and the parents are facing during this difficult time frame. One of the things that you mentioned also was that there's this additional level of interaction amongst other students that they're learning how to manage that at home. They may not be able to, whether it's the fact that they're the only child or they just have siblings who do not understand them, and the dynamics of what that looks like at home may not be an environment that assists them with learning as well. Could you elaborate some more on that as you were sharing with us earlier?
Oh, say that again.
Some of the challenges that they're facing at home, they won't get at school, because at school you talked about they're learning from other students as well,
Yeah.
that they're missing this time frame. So could you elaborate a little bit more on that?
So yeah, I mean, it's a variety of personalities that a student is exposed to when they're in the school environment. So when they're at home with mom or dad or sister or brother every single day, hours and hours, and both sides start to get frustrated with each other. And I think some of the parents who would listen to this would know exactly what I'm talking about, because it's one thing to just be a parent and to have to be responsible for your kid, but part of your kid's development is put on the school system. And when you add that to the parent's responsibility, I mean, it is the parent's responsibility ultimately. The parent is responsible for the child, period. But teachers play a vital role in that. And so not just academics, but those emotional experiences, those social experiences that they're getting exposed to, they're not getting that. And so in addition to that, the parents can easily get frustrated because now they're with their kid all day, and they also have to be responsible for those academics, which they themselves may not have the capacity to do.
So you have the experience of not just being a parent advocate and a child advocate, but in the pandemic, you also had to do some homeschooling, virtual schooling with your son. And can you tell us a little bit about, how you navigated that, or have any suggestions as to how other people can navigate it, who may not have had, you worked for the Children's Home for how many, 17 years?
I worked there for 15 years, and then I've been at Beech Acres for a year. I worked at a psychiatric unit for 2 years before I was at the Children's Home.
So even with all your experience, can you talk about how you have navigated having to homeschool or virtual school your child while you were working? What were the challenges? What were the things you had to keep in mind, and what suggestions might you have for people?
I would say the biggest thing is, as a parent, you have to watch your level of frustration, because you have way more invested emotionally and relationally than the teacher would, because you're the parent. And so if and you're not teaching your kid every day academics, so you don't know the progress that they've been making over the course of a school year. And if there's a lesson that comes across that and you call yourself trying to teach a new lesson to your child, an academic lesson, it's hard enough to be teaching them life lessons, but now you have to teach them an academic lesson that you might have lost over the years, because let's face it, I don't know how much percentage of the things that we learn in school we forget and never use again. But now you're responsible for teaching that, and it's easy to become quickly frustrated. And if you're not careful, your son or your daughter, or whoever the child is that you're responsible for, they're going to feel that immediately. they're going to see, because they know you, right? They know your facial expressions. They can tell the change in your voice tone, and they're going to pick up on it immediately, and they're going to feel like they're disappointing you. And that is going to shut them down, and they won't be able to learn. And so a lot of times you will wonder, you have to watch your child's body language, because you're not going to be able to tell that you're getting frustrated, because you're just going to think that you're just talking normal to your kid, but they're going to be hearing that imperative voice. They're going to be hearing that I'm getting it wrong and this is escalating before you even realize it. And then before you know it, they'll be crying, or their head will be sulking, or they'll be sulking, or they won't even, you'll just notice that they'll just stop trying, which is going to make you even more angry. So I would say, I said all that to say that the biggest thing for me was reading my son's body language to tell how I'm doing. Like, how is he receiving me? Is he seeing me as dad who's disappointed, or is he seeing me as a nurturing educator? So
yeah, you also talked about that there is, you were talking about recess and different things, and now the child is in the house all day long.
All day. Yeah. So yeah, and the biggest thing, like one of the things that was a concern, even with those who I supervised when I worked at the children's home, and we had groups of kids coming in for hour and a half to 2 hours, was teaching them how to structure the day and make things structured, but also not have kids in one place for an extended period of time in the classroom. So, when you're in school, you might have the kids sit down for 20 to 40 minutes at a time, and then they're up and doing something else. The same thing needs to happen at home. You can't expect your child to get up at 7 a.m, start class at 7:30, and then they're just sitting there from 7:30 to 12, just doing work on the computer, and then lunch, and then back at it for 2 or 3 more hours. And that breeds restlessness. Educate, like, I don't know what to call it, but it would be fatigue for me. Like, I can only take.
I don't want to do that at all.
Right. So it's like, and you take kids who have ADHD, or kids who have an attention, those kids who are younger, 6, 7, 8-year-olds with the lower attention spans, you have to build time in there for them to have a break. And then you have to, like, that has to be structured. It has to be the same every day. It can't, sometimes it could be different, because kids need to still learn that things can change at any given time. They need to learn how to be able to adapt to change when it happens suddenly. But for the most part, schools are structured. Lunch happens at the same time every day. And so whatever you have to do, get the meat out the freezer the day before, buy food that you can put in the oven, make it as healthy as you can. Make sure you don't have to spend a lot of time preparing food. Don't give them a bunch of sugar or juices and all that stuff. Make sure they drink water. All that stuff is important, that you have to think about. And, I hate to build in recess time. Maybe they can go outside. Maybe you want to let them read a book or sit in their room. Maybe, and I don't recommend this, but I did let my son do this. I let him watch like 10 to 15 minutes of TV for his recess when the weather wasn't favorable outside. But that's just what I did, because my son knows how to stop when I tell him to stop, and he can turn it back on. And it's all relative to what your child's level of maturity is.
So what are some of the conversations you're having with parents and that are challenged in this time frame?
The conversations have been difficult, because the parents that I've been speaking with are those who have difficulty with their child's behavior as it is. And in this pandemic, where they're not going to school every day, it becomes more difficult. And the idea of us helping feels less impactful. It feels like, because we can only offer services virtually, that there's no other option out there for these parents. I've had calls from parents with kids who have autism, and the school that I'm at, they have an autism unit, and for some of these parents, that is a godsend for them, because this is a specialized unit with trained, specialized teachers to deal with autism, to create an atmosphere that is financed to have have to address those sensory issues. You know, there's equipment and there's occupational therapy and there's all of these, you know, things created in the classroom for specifically designed to help these autistic kids learn, and now they're not there. And
Yeah.
some and parents don't have the resources or the financial ability to provide all of these devices and these different ways to help their kid, and they need help. So the biggest thing that we're trying to help, the biggest conversation that we're having is trying to get parents connected to our parenting coaching, which we call family peer support. And basically that's a person that goes alongside the parent and gives them ideas to put into practice in the home that can help them with their kids.
That support, is that free? You know, to whom is it available?
Okay, so family peer support is free. It is provided through grants. So at Mount Washington, we have a family peer support person who works part-time at our school. And basically, through my assessing all of the families in the school throughout a school year, I will refer families to her, and she will make contact, and together as a team, they'll decide on what's the best way to assist. So yes, it is free. A family peer support is not just about family coaching or parenting coaching. It's also about connecting families to other resources, or maybe you might have a family who doesn't have health insurance and they want to learn they need to learn how to get that, or they don't know how Ohio does it. And so it could be something as simple as letting them come in and use our computer to sign up for Medicaid or to sign up for benefits through JFS. So those kinds of things.
So we put in the chat the Beech Acres Beyond the Class program and what schools are specific for that. When you talk about this parenting support, can any parent in the city get the support, or just the parents of the schools that you all work in?
That's a good question. I think it's based on the school. So if the school has those staff members from Beech Acres as part of the Beyond the Classroom program, then yes. I don't know if all the schools have family peer support, so I can't definitively answer that, but I feel like for the most part they do.
And you also have a gateway to mental health as a paid service through Medicare, correct?
Correct.
Medicaid.
Correct. So
go ahead.
So yes, at Mount Washington, at most schools there's 2 clinical services that we offer, and we accept some private insurance and almost all of the Medicaid type benefits. So it would be full on clinical therapy, and then what we call a therapeutic support provider, or what's better known as CPST. That's what it is, the lower form of not counseling, but it's like community support, but it's in the school.
Okay. For those of you that are viewing, please send us your questions and we'll attempt to field them to Robert as well. What are you hoping to learn through this pandemic experience that's going to help you be better prepared going forward for these students?
What am I hoping to learn? Ask that one more time.
As maybe that you haven't gotten to this point yet, what are you hoping to learn in your department as it relates to this experience that you're having with the pandemic, and then going forward with trying to be better prepared to help students?
So the students are returning maybe 2 days, is that correct?
October 12th, October 13th, yeah.
So when you guys are together in your staff meetings, you know, based on what you've learned personally as, you know, working with virtual learning as parents, based on, you know, whatever kind of statistics that you might be receiving that you're discussing in your group, what have you learned? What's your plan to assist parents in this 221 or whatever the the thing is going to be starting in October the 12th?
Well, I would say the one thing that I have learned is that parents are less likely to engage. Engage meaning seek help or ask for assistance, or they're less likely to do that when there's no face-to-face engagement. And so I'm looking and I'm expecting that when we return, that parents are going to start re-engaging, and there's going to be a flood of ask. There's going to be a flood of requests for help. And I anticipate that children and adolescents are going to be, they're going to have an abundance of social energy that I think is going to create. I mean, I honestly, I don't know what to expect, but I anticipate that there's going to be a lot of issues.
Okay.
and I'm wondering how this has affected you. I'm wondering how this has affected our students socially. We already know that they're going to be behind academically. We already know that. And that alone is going to cause them to. That's going to increase frustration because teachers are going to feel pressured to rush lessons and get kids back on track. And I wonder if that's going to further frustrate students. But the social and emotional part, like, are we going to see an increase in depression? Are we going to see an increase in bullying? Are we going to see an increase in, fighting among students because they've lost out on months of social interactions and conflict resolution that happens naturally without adult assistance. And they've been with their families who could be, dysfunctional. And is that going to be brought into the school environment? I would think it would be. But
So you said that a lot of the people that you deal with at Beech Acres are in the LMI category. They're low to moderate income. They're dealing with poverty. What are the top issues that people that you serve are struggling with prior to the pandemic that might be exacerbated in the pandemic?
The biggest one for me would be childcare, and followed by employment. So they go hand in hand. So
Followed by what? I'm sorry.
Followed by employment or lack of employment. Because if I'm a single, and I'm just going to say, if I'm a single mom, because let's face it, that's what we're dealing with mostly. If I'm a single mom and I have one or two kids who are in school, I get up in the morning, they go to school, I go to work. And then I pick them up from school and we come home. Now school is closed. And I don't have the money to pay for childcare so that I can continue to go to work because I don't make that much. So now I have to quit my job and stay home with the kids. And now I have to sign up for welfare, or I have to make sure I have all the benefits that I need, or get unemployment, or however all of that works. I'm responsible for doing all of that now without employment. And then I would say just general resources. So not having enough food now because the kids are home all the time now. So now I'm responsible for feeding them the breakfast and the lunch. Whereas when they were going to school, they could eat breakfast and lunch because at Mount Washington, because of the demographic at the school, it's a free lunch, free breakfast for all at that school. And the third or fourth one I would say would be transportation, because even the most, so like the schools were still schools were still giving out enough food for families, even when school was out. So, right. So, but if I don't have transportation, or if I'm unable to walk, or I would add this, I would say healthcare, or how would you word that? The health status, or health issues in the family. Is what I'm trying to say. Those are also obstacles for families, because now they can't get out to go and get the things that they need to provide for their kids, or they don't have family who's going to help them do that. So even if the school is passing out food, I have to help. We have to figure out how can we get parents that food so they can feed their kids during the pandemic, because they're not going to school to eat. So.
And how have you combated that?
We've delivered food to families. I've personally delivered food to families, and some of my staff have done it too. Warehouse Church gave us food to deliver. So there's a plug there.
We did. Yes, we did. That answers part of my next.
We've picked up. Sorry, go ahead.
No, my next question was going to be, what are the other agencies that you've been able to connect with? Are you connecting to other agencies that can assist with some of the needs that they have?
So, Coalition of Care, we've connected with them through the Care Portal.
Okay.
So the Care Portal is an online database where churches in communities have access to this database, and whenever me as a community partner identify a need in a family, these are tangible needs, then I am able to go into an online database and put in what that need is and the family's name and their contact info. That family obviously gives me permission to seek help for them, and that goes out to whatever that community is, and a church in that community contacts that family directly and meets that need. So that's called Care Portal, and Coalition of Care is the nonprofit agency that manages that in the Cincinnati area.
Yes, I just put that information for the Care Portal and the Coalition of Care inside the chat. So we want to kind of make a little bit of a shift now, because we want to also talk about the unique challenges that foster children, foster families might have in the pandemic. And, one of the reasons why we had you come on is because you have been in the foster care system, and you can tell us a little bit about your background first, and then we'll go into asking what people might be experiencing now.
Can I ask one more question before we transition?
Yeah.
Do you have volunteer needs that you like to put out there? Is there areas of need?
I believe Beech Acres is always looking for volunteers. There's a protocol, I'm sure, of how that goes, and since I'm kind of new there, I'm not really aware of how they handle that. But I would say the biggest thing they can do is go to the Beech Acres website. The other thing is that I'm pretty sure our schools are always looking for volunteers. But I think with the pandemic and all of the restrictions and protocols that are in place, I'm not sure that specifically Cincinnati Public Schools, I'm not sure that they're allowing volunteers, because you understand what I'm saying. But I think in the future, when all this dies down, definitely if you're looking to volunteer, check with your local community school. Check with look on the Cincinnati Public Schools website, look on Beech Acres website. There's other agencies out there in other communities that take volunteers. So yeah, the Children's Home Cincinnati, St. Aloysius, Lighthouse Youth Services.
Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about your background and how it impacts what you felt as a child growing up, and then we'll go into how that might be dealt with in the pandemic.
So yeah, I was born and raised in Cincinnati, the Queen City. No, but seriously, I grew up when I was 3 years old. I was adopted. So from birth to 3, I really don't know what my life looked like. So at the age of 3, I was adopted by a woman who would go on and physically abuse me for the next 5 years. And at the age of 8, the teachers at my elementary school, when I was in the second grade, got together, and I don't know how it happened behind the scenes, but one day I just didn't go home that day. And I wound up in a group home. And from 8 to 9, I lived in a group home, and then I was in foster care. I was in a few different foster homes that didn't work out. And then I landed in a specific foster home and lived there for 7 years. And then some bad things happened in that foster home. And so I had to move out to another foster home for 2 more years until I graduated from high school at the age of 19. And I was emancipated thereafter. And then I didn't really know what to do with my life. So I decided I was going to go to the military. So I enrolled into the Air Force, and 6 weeks later, I left boot camp and came back home. That's another story in and of itself. But so one day I got a random phone call and said, "Do you want to work with kids?" And I said, "Sure." And to make a long story short, I ended up working on a psychiatric unit, child behavioral psych unit at the age of 20, or 19 or 20. And then I left there and started at the children's home and was there for 15 years. And now I'm at Beech Acres.
So in your foster care experience, you have your orphan, you had an adoptive experience that was abusive. You've had several foster care and group home experiences. So you've done some traveling, and there are probably a lot of people out here who are either know someone in foster care or are foster care families themselves. Can you give us kind of the top challenges that a foster child experiences just generally in the system?
I would say the first thing, based on my experience, is not having a family or not having a place to actually be that you belong, or not having a biological connection. So you always know that you're just the extra kid in the home. Like, you always know that. And if the foster parent has not put in supernatural effort into making you feel and proving to you that you belong here, it's not, the child is going to know. I would say the second thing is not developing the life skills towards independence. So when you are like the second and most important kid in the house, you're the last, or you don't learn at all certain basic living skills that are going to prepare you for life, or just prepare you for adolescence, or prepare you for anything for that matter. And so, I mean, I can give you a long laundry list of things that I did not learn, that you would say, if you didn't know my background, you'd be like, "You a grown man and you didn't know that?" And so, that becomes a huge obstacle as you grow into an adult, because you get that reaction from other adults, like, "What? You didn't know that?" And I would say the other thing is, for me, was not having the support or family support towards the things that I had an affinity to. So, like, music was something that I was always interested in. Basketball was something that I was always interested in. And if I had someone in my life who would kind of nurture those gifts and see those interests and motivate me towards goals around those interests, sometimes as an adult, I feel like I would be further along in those arenas, or I would have had greater experiences in those arenas if I would have had the kind of support that a real parent would give their child. So music, I was involved in music a lot, and I had to do it. I had to be involved and be motivated on my own. And I think, if I would have had the kind of motivation that a parent would give you, then I would have been like super excited about it. And maybe I would have went to a music school, or maybe, you know, I would have pursued it long before I decided to pursue it, because I only decided to pursue music maybe in the last 5 years, like for real pursue it. And so obviously I can't pursue basketball because I'm not good enough. You have to start that off young, young. That has to be nurtured at the very beginning. So, and basketball was the thing that I really feel like I lost on because I thought I was good because the basketball coach told me I was good in gym class. And my foster mom was like, nope, you're too skinny. You can't do it.
So can you use some feeling words to describe some of the ways that you felt as you were traversing through your foster care experience?
Unimportant.
Okay.
If that's a word.
That's good.
I felt lonely. Like I was by myself all the time. In a house full of other kids and other adults, but I felt like I was by myself. No one came to my graduation when I graduated high school, even though everyone in my life was telling me that was the best thing I could do. It didn't seem like it. It just felt like another day. So I would say lonely, and I would say lost and confused because I had no sense of future. I had no sense of what are you going to do with your life? Like, what is the plan? And people ask me if people ask me today, what's the plan or what are your goals? I get either I get defensive or I start feeling anxious because half the time I don't know because that's how I grew up not knowing. And, I know, I've learned to trust in God. I've learned to, put it all in his hands. But I've also learned the hard way there are things that I'm supposed to be doing to prepare for whatever God has for me. And because of those experiences and feeling lost, I've always had this feeling of what am I going to do? I'm kind of like always living in the now and just whatever happens, happens. So I would say confused, lost, for like a feeling of just being procrastinating, or I don't know the right words, but if procrastination is a feeling, then that's what I felt.
Yeah, you're feeling behind, like you've lost time.
And there's no reason to even try to move on because I'm always going to be behind.
So there's two kinds of things. There's the one thing of you're orphaned and you don't have the connectivity to biological parents and family. That's one thing. Then you get adopted and you're in an abusive situation, and then you're cast into a transient moving family to family thing. And you were describing as a child how that moving from family to family feels to you. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it's funny because it was exciting. Whenever I moved to a new foster home, it was exciting because I don't know why, but it was just exciting. But then I would learn how these foster parents really operated. It was like it would start off like a honeymoon period. It would start off like, oh, they like me and they're going to support me and this is going to be great. And then 2 or 3 months or 4 or 5 months pass and you're like, oh, this is changing quickly. So they really don't support me and what the stuff that they were saying in the beginning is not really true. So I would say the biggest thing, the adjustment was kind of being, it was almost like you're being lied to without being told a lie. You know, you understand what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
it's like I lived in a foster home where, things were rosy in the beginning, and then as time went on, I started getting yelled at more. I started getting told that that going to church was nothing, that I shouldn't be going to so much church, or that I wasn't good enough at this, or uh, it was just it starts off good, and then as time goes on, you start to realize that you're not really important to them, that you're just they're just there to provide the basics. And I was looking for and hoping for, no matter what, even if I was getting that messaging, I was hoping that once I graduated from high school, that, like, I wasn't expecting to just be tossed into the world.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But once I realized that that's what was going to happen, I lost all hope for anything that I was going to do in the future. I wanted to go into journalism. I had a full scholarship to NKU for journalism. I just was like, nope, I'm not doing it. Because who am I going to go to I have no skills. The only thing I knew how to do was catch a bus and spend money. That's the only thing I knew how to do. And I was smart academically.
You had to eat.
Huh?
You knew how to eat.
I knew how to eat. I still know how to eat. Bring me some food downstairs. I'm just going.
So now, if you're a child and you're in those situations, you've been through neglect, you've been through abuse, you've been abandoned, you've been transient, you felt this kind of, secondary child status. Now there's a pandemic, and you're a foster child in that home. What is happening to those children? Some of them, I know that's not universal.
Right. And I'm not trying to paint this overall broad picture of that foster care sucks, but I think it's good for people to hear, people who don't know anything about foster care, for them to understand what can go on. And I would say during this pandemic, all those things that I just talked about that you feel as a foster child are exponentially more. So if you're the kid that has to do all the chores, which I was, I had to wash the dishes all the time. And you have to do more of that because there's more dishes to wash. It's just, if you're the kid who, like, for instance, I wasn't allowed to watch TV in the living room for whatever reason. And so if you're at home more, then there's more opportunities for you to learn that you're not allowed in the living room, or you're not allowed to go in the refrigerator, or you need to stay in your room, or, one foster parent went as far as putting a camera in my bedroom. So I lived for a few years.
Surveillance.
Huh?
You were under surveillance.
Yes. So, and I'm not saying that happens in every foster home, but what I'm saying is they're not at school. They don't, there's no escape from that. When I went to school, when I left the house to go to school, there was an escape. That was an escape. And I acted a fool in school because of it, because I was excited to be at school and I could not contain myself because I was just happy to be in a place where I felt like I belonged. Because students belong in a school. I mean, that's the American way. When you leave, when the school season, you leave home, you walk to school. No matter how much snow is on the ground, you walk uphill in 10 inches of snow both ways, and it's good. That's what we did back then. And that's an escape. It becomes an escape from so and so get this kind of Christmas gift and you got this little Christmas gift. And there's a clear, you just get reminded more of the difference, especially if there are biological kids in the home. And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, there are foster parents out there who are only in it for the compensation that they get. And so, I can understand, trying to supplement your income. I understand that. I'm not against that. But what I'm saying is that you can't have a human life, an innocent human life, in the balance of that, and then be mad because now you have to be responsible for that child's character and upbringing for as long as they're going to be living with you. And then
how you view your relationships with authorities? How did your experiences there change how you viewed those?
I would say as a child, I didn't respect female authority. I would be in the classroom just fooling on female teachers, just joking and acting up. But if there was a male teacher, I wouldn't do none of that. So it definitely affected me in that way, because everyone that took care of me were women, and so.
And the people that abused you were women.
Abused me, but also when I say took care of me, like just took care of my basic needs.
Okay.
Like there was no hugging, there was none of that.
So if you had to give advice to, maybe there's a set of advice for parents who are foster parenting, and maybe there's a different set of advice. Maybe there's, a teenager or something that's in foster care. Would you give some advice to the parents and how to deal with the children, and then some advice? So
I'll start with the foster parents. So if you are a foster parent or aspiring to be one, I would say, and some of you are going to know what I'm talking about when I say this. We've all heard parents say, as long as you live in my house, you follow my rules. As long as you live under my roof, you follow my rules. But if you're going to be a foster parent, that's not the case anymore for that child. Sometimes you're going to have to live by that kid's rules, because they have trauma and they have experiences and they have seen things that you probably will never see in your lifetime. And so you can't just say to any kid that comes into your house that these are the rules and you're going to follow them and that's it. That's not going to work. You have to observe and learn from that child. You might get a kid in your house who has a food insecurity issue, and they don't know you. You're a stranger to them. And you can be as nice as you can and as you want in the beginning. They still don't know you and they still don't trust you. So they might steal food. They might hide food under their bed or put food in their book bags. I did that until I was like 16 or 17. I was going in the freezer at 6 a.m. to put food in my book bag to take to school because for some reason I just didn't think I was going to have enough food. And so kids, if you're going to be a foster parent, you can't have that mindset that you're going to follow my rules and that's it. You have to learn and you have to adjust to that kid's level of trust, and you have to earn their trust. You have to earn their trust, and if you have an adolescent moving into your house, you have to earn their respect. You would think that if a teenager doesn't come to my house, they're going to respect me. You're going to respect me. No, you need to show them respect first, because they have not learned it. Most likely have not learned it because they've been thrown around and they've been, their lives have been toyed with for as long as they remember, and they also have that trauma piece that has affected their brain growth. So I would say you have to know that going in. And I mean, I shouldn't have to say this, but you can't be in it for money.
Very true.
And so for a regular parent, I would say You got to do your best to provide as much structure as you can for your child during the pandemic. If your school's not opening yet, you got to do your best to help your child to at least have something to expect every day that's the same, so that they can feel a level of comfort of knowing A is always going to happen every day, and I can look forward to that. Even if it's just starting with lunch is going to be at 12:15 every day, no matter what. I'm going to start lunch at 11:30, and he's or she's going to know that lunch is going to start. You try to do something that's at the same time every day, because structure in this season is the most, in my opinion, is going to be the most important thing, because they're going to get your love. They're going to get your affection. They're going to get all of that because they're with you all the time. I'd say the thing that you can be lax on unintentionally is structure.
So going to the actual young people, maybe a better question is, if you could tell yourself something now, what would you wish you would have told yourself, or what would you tell your foster care self? What advice would you give yourself?
I would tell them that there are people out there who are not related to you, that and I would tell myself that God can put people in your life to support and help you grow. And there is hope. In this world, there is hope. Because at the time when I was an adolescent, I didn't think there was any hope. I didn't even think I was going to live past a certain age. So the one thing I would have told myself is that you will live past this age, because that would have changed my entire thought process of how I was moving out of the age of 18, 19 to 20. From 19 to 20, that was the thing I needed to hear. You're going to live longer than 21. Because I, for some reason, just thought I was going to die. I had no reason of why, but that's just something that I just thought, that I wasn't going to live past the age of 21. And so I would have told myself, you have a future. You should go to school. It's going to be okay. God is going to put people in your life to support you and give you advice and hold you accountable to certain things.
I think on the practical side also, if we're engaging young people who are in this kind of situation, some of the things that you mentioned, caring about what they have an affinity for, supporting their games. One of the things, you don't have a lot of pictures of yourself when you were younger. So, all kinds of experiences that might, speak normalcy to a child, these children may not have had those kinds of experiences. And even, if you can speak to, the fact that you were emancipated, and so you got out, you were released into society without having family ties like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know what percentage of students are released into emancipation like that. Is there anything unique to these young people that we should know?
Those who are released in emancipation immediately after graduating from high school, most likely they're going to lack the most basic understanding of the way that society works. They're not going to know, how to get their license, or how to they're not going to know how to, they're going to have issues with like being on time. Like some of the most elementary things that you need to know, like how to dress for a job interview, how to save money, how to deal with conflict resolution and relationships. They're going to lack a lot of those skills, those basic living skills that's going to help them along the way and be successful in whatever it is that they want to do. And so if you're someone who feels led to mentor or led to, take young people under your wing, or you're someone who likes to help, I would start there, because there's a high need for those young people who are coming out of foster care. And the lack of understanding of those basic things breeds more lack of confidence in self and low self-esteem, and they become more susceptible to addiction, because they feel hopeless or they feel useless, and their dreams start to fade because they lack the necessary skills to propel themselves to where they want to go.
The last thing I'd like to know is what advice would you give someone? You were 8, and one day you just didn't go back to a home. What advice would you give to someone that thinks that there is abuse of a foster child? How can they help that child?
If abuse of any child, or what do you?
Well, any child, but I'm specifically relating to the over possibility of children in foster care.
I would say if you suspect abuse, you need to call Children's Services. Even if you don't have evidence, you always call, because even if you're wrong, what if you're not wrong? What if you're right and you don't call? I'm a mandated reporter, so if I suspect it, I'm going to call regardless.
Yeah.
But as a civilian in the community, and I'm going about my day, if I suspect the child is being abused, I'm going to call. Then that is the number one protection. That's the number one thing to do. Like, you can't just, if you see something, you have to say something. You can't just let it linger and think, should I call or should I not? If it's a question and if it made you think, then you need to call.
Somebody asked,
yes. Sorry, go ahead.
Somebody asked, are there any programs for people who become emancipated right from high school?
That's a good question, and I don't know, because I haven't worked in that arena. I know that when I was a teenager, there was an independent living program, which I didn't talk about. So there were some things that I did get to learn through independent living program, and those are super helpful. Independent living program for me was through Lighthouse Youth Services, but I don't know if they still have that service, so don't quote me on that. That's something that I would have to do more research and ask around. But what happened for me was, prior to me going to the Air Force, when I was emancipated, I was able to go. They got me an apartment. They helped me find an apartment, and I worked and would pay for my own groceries. And there was just some other things that I was able to do in that independent living program before I decided to go to the Air Force.
Well, we're going to close out, but you've had an extraordinary, difficult life, but you've also had an extraordinarily blessed life coming out of it. You are 38 years old. You have a beautiful wife and 2 beautiful kids. You have been gainfully employed for 19 years of your life. You are an extraordinary musician, and you are extremely gifted and bright. And so, God has really blessed you. And, generally, people who are emancipated from foster care don't have that kind of a story, don't have that kind of a turnaround. To what do you attribute that? And any thoughts you might have?
I attribute that to the Lord and my connection that I was graced to have to the church. When I was in one of the first foster homes I lived in, I had the desire to start going to church. And I walked to a church, and I learned about God. I learned about the Bible. I learned about his faithfulness, and I learned about his plan for our lives. And that would be that, and my connection with music and worship. I think that has been the thing that has kept me. And it's God who places people in our lives to help us. And I feel like the biggest thing that he's done is place people in my life at specific times in my life for a specific reason, for specific lessons, and all the things that I talked about that I missed out on, I've been able to, in my opinion, there are some areas where I've been able to, the time has been able to be restored, right? God can restore time. And I think certain people have come and gone in my life to impart into me and sow seeds that would grow and build skills and build character and teach me things that I need to know as I move on, as God continues to propel me and move me towards a thing. What that is, I don't know. I think it's great. But there are frustrations along the way. There are conflicts along the way. And all of these things that God is doing, I won't understand it until I get to the very end. But just always knowing that He has a plan and that He is in control. And as long as I have a heart that surrenders totally to Him, then the sky is the limit. And I think, saying that I attribute that to God and the people that He's put in my life and the exposures that He's given me to some great people in this country and in this city. And I'm thankful for that. And I think without that, I'd be somewhere with some kind of addiction somewhere.
Well, for our part, we are extraordinarily proud of you. We love you. We are grateful to God to have you in our lives. You have brought such joy and such happiness to us. It has been as much of a blessing for you to be with us than you can even imagine us being with you. So we also are really grateful for you sharing your testimony, sharing some of your expertise today for Tuesday Table Talks. And we want to thank you, because I know sometimes it's not easy to make those kind of declarations and sharing. So,
but we also are excited about where you're going. I know you mentioned having challenges with goals, but you do have some goals, and we're watching you fulfill some of those goals, and we're excited for you for where those goals are going to take you. And as always, we're here to walk with you, to encourage you and support you however we can as you continue to see what God has next for you and the family, for that matter.
Hi, London. Hi, RJ. Hi, Rylan.
Well, those of you that are watching, thank you for joining. Yeah.
You're wrong for that.
I just cut you out the wheel. Go Lakers. So thank you for joining us again. Another edition of Tuesday Table Talk with Robert Johnson, child advocate from Beech Acres Parenting Center. We're so grateful for the work that he's doing. We thank you. Grateful for you all joining us today. Stay tuned. There is going to be more coming. We'll let you know who our next guest is coming up real soon.
And tomorrow we have Bible study at 7:00. We will have the 7 deadly sins, and we'll be talking about wrath and anger. So if you got an issue there, it's time for you to come listen.
Yeah, you always gotta love dealing with anger righteously.
Have a great evening, everybody.
Take care.
Mamba out.